everyone, my name is Gabby and it is 2021. We are in a new year and I'm already feeling better about life and about things. I don't know, I just have a feeling like this year is going to be better. I feel like after the events of 2020, it could easily get worse, but the way things have been going, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling cautiously optimistic. So in today's video, I want to talk about the books I've been reading, the movies I've been watching, the TV shows I've been binging, and the things that I've been listening to, and also just talk about other things going on in my life and sort of recap this point of where I'm at. This is my first video of the year, and I specifically wanted to wait until after Inauguration Day to film my first video of 2021 because I feel like we are finally in a new year. So let's get right to it. Let's kick off 2021, you guys. So let's talk about books. I feel like it's been so long since I've done that on my channel. I was originally going to make a video where I discussed all of my 2020 reads. I instead did that on an Instagram live. So if you want to check that out, it's on my IGTV now for you to rewatch. And I do just a very chill, relaxed discussion of some of the books that I read. It's very informal. I'll either do that again in 2021 or if I manage to be consistent uploading videos on this channel and really discussing all of the books that I've read in depth, we'll do it here and we won't have a need for that. I have read so far 2 books this year and I am currently in the progress of reading 2 more, and ideally I will have one of them finished by the end of the month or both of them finished by the end of the month or close to finish. We'll see. I feel like I'm okay with where I'm at in my Goodreads reading goal. I always have my goal set to 100 books. I've never read 100 books yet, but I will one day. Don't know what year it'll be, but we'll see. Maybe 2021 is the year. Anyway, my first read of 2021 was Among the Beasts and Briars by Ashley Poston. I love Ashley's book so much. I was a little bit speculative going into this book because I knew it was a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but that was all I knew. I knew a fox was involved. I had little glimmers of what the plot was about. I definitely wasn't as familiar with this story as I was with Bookish and the Beast, which I read back in 2020, I believe in August, and I really loved this book. I got so quickly sucked into it and captivated with the world and with the characters. I'm hopeful that there's gonna be a second book. It looks like we are setting up for a book 2, so I'm really excited for that announcement to come and to get to read more from these characters. Ashley Poston writes amazing love interest. This is something that's sort of taken a while for me to sort of click and really realize and recognize, but her love interests are so brilliant. All of the relationships she writes are so interesting, and even relationships that she sort of squeezes in at the end, you're like, oh, I want more. And I feel like if we get a second book, there's gonna be some relationships that are going to get to take center stage that were sort of tucked in at the end of the book, and I'm thrilled for that. And I have so much hope that like we are going to get to see more of this world and these characters. I didn't give you a synopsis of what the book is about because I feel like you should have the experience I did where you just go in and read it and get to experience the magic of this world. It's such an interesting Beauty and the Beast retelling in the way that Ashley takes this story that's so well known and there's been so many different retellings of, and really makes it her own and weaves different things together and really keeps you guessing. You sort of have the expectations of like what you think the story is going to be based on what the tale is of the Beauty and the Beast, but you're also kept guessing and you never really know how much she's going to stick to the tale, how much she's going to do things of her own, how much sort of the constraints of her own world and the new things she's introducing impact the tale. It's just so fun. I love retellings, and Ashley is brilliant at them. It was such a good book and such a great way to kick off my 2021. The next read of January was another book that I really, really loved, and that is My Calamity Jane by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows. I love the My Lady Janies, and I love this series. All 3 of these books are just so fun. I love the way that the Lady Janies come in as narrators at certain points and help provide context and clarification on things and sort of have some wink wink moments that are really fun. The characters themselves are also so fantastic. I also sort of realized while reading this book, because it was the 3rd one in the series, that I'm often not so much a fan of Jane as I am of the sort of secondary female character that is written into the story and their love interest. That's more so where I feel like my interest lies rather than on Jane herself, which I think is interesting. But I also love the way that the Lady Janeys take these famous Janes in history and retell their stories and do all of these different fun things. And I'm not a fan of Westerns by any means, but I got so transported into this world just by the sheer power of their storytelling, and the way that these stories are set up is just so fun for me, and I have the best time reading these books every single time I pick them up, which is why I'm so thrilled to find out that this series is continuing in a different format. We're now going to be following famous Marys, and the first book in the series is going to be a retelling of Mary, Queen of Scots, which I know my friend Molly is a huge fan of, so I'm already thrilled to read this book because of that. And again, if it's the same sort of narrative storytelling as we've gotten from the Lady Jane series, then I know I'm going to love it. And I'm just so thrilled to get to see these characters continued. And that was something that I was so hoping for, was to get to see another series that followed another set of famous women in history. Like, pick a different name. Like, you could do this forever. And I'm just so thrilled that they decided to continue doing this in somewhat of a different capacity. I'm so thrilled. And I love this book so much. If you enjoy like fun narrative storytelling and fast-paced action and lots of twists and turns, this book is for you, because every single minute I was on the edge of my seat, I was gasping, I was like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen next? And it just made the whole experience of reading this book so fun. And I cannot wait to read more from the Lady Janeys, the Lady Marys now, in the future. I'm so pumped to see that we're getting more books. So my next two reads are books that I'm currently reading, and they're a little bit different, definitely not in the YA category. The first is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I challenged myself at the start of 2020 that by the end of this decade, I will have read all of F. Scott Fitzgerald's published work. So that includes all of his novels and then all of his short stories. I want to consume all of his work. And I feel like that's very realistic for me to do at the end of the decade. And then, 2020 happened and I was like, I'm not in a roaring 20s mood. And so I only read one F. Scott Fitzgerald short story, which was the Benjamin Button. And that was fun. But now I'm back and I'm kicking it off with The Great Gatsby, because The Great Gatsby has now become public domain. So we're gonna get Great Gatsby retellings, and who knows whether that will take like a film format or a narrative format. There's already a book out there that I believe is called Nick. Maybe it's a Gatsby retelling of like Nick before he met Gatsby, or if he didn't meet Gatsby. I don't know. I saw it at Barnes & Noble and I was like, I need to make sure I pick that up the next time that I'm there, because I just told myself no, because I had spent some money on some books at Anderson's, and I was like, no, we need to limit ourselves, not yet. And I wanted to make sure that I was fully into my Great Gatsby mode. I wanted to commit to this before I just went and picked up a Great Gatsby retelling, because my focus is supposed to be on F. Scott Fitzgerald, not in the retellings, but I will be getting to them and we will be enjoying those throughout the decade as well. Oh man, I read Great Gatsby in my sophomore year of high school. I talked about it on this channel. If you want, I will go and I will find the video where I discuss The Great Gatsby, and I will leave the link in the description and I'll put it in the card as well. But this book is my favorite classic of all time, and I'm having so much fun rereading it and sort of getting to get into the meat of it and getting to get into Gatsby as a character, because he's just so interesting. And oddly enough, I had a moment where I was reading this book yesterday and I was like, Gatsby has a little bit of Trump-esque qualities, and it was weird just reading it in the current setting, in the current world that we're in, like 100 years after this book is taking place almost, and just thinking about how much our world has changed, but also how much it hasn't, how we as people tend to cling on to things and we refuse to grow and refuse to open ourselves up to different opportunities. I love this book so much, and I had a flimsy, gross-ass paperback edition that is old and has water damage and is ripped and torn, and I finally got myself a nice new hardcover, and it's gorgeous. And I recently took off the sleeve and saw this gorgeous white and gold over here and just thought it was the most beautiful thing in the world. I am so excited for there to be more beautiful editions of The Great Gatsby. Now I'm so excited for all of the Gatsby-ness that's to come, and I feel like we'll finally be able to enjoy it, because maybe we're finally getting to our roaring 20s point. Maybe we can enjoy the roaring 20s in this decade. Maybe it'll happen. Who knows? We'll see. And lastly, for books, I have Neil Strauss's Everyone Loves You When You're Dead. So this is a book that my friend gifted to me. It's actually signed, which is crazy. She just gave it to me and she was like, I'm getting rid of a whole bunch of things. I'm trying to be a minimalist, and I never say no to free books. And this is perfect for me to read as a journalism major because there's a whole bunch of sort of short little transcripts of different interviews that Neil Strauss has conducted, and they sort of all have this theme of different conversations where they talk about death, and you're getting a really interesting glimpse into these people's lives. There's interviews with Snoop Dogg, Tom Cruise, Madonna, Lady Gaga, Pink, Justin Timberlake, Gwen Stefani, Ben Stiller, Chris Rock, Jay Leno. Like, there's so many names in this book. The list goes on, and there's a whole bunch that I haven't even touched yet because I'm not that far into the book, as you can tell from where my bookmark is placed. And this is one that I feel like I don't want to entirely inhale. I feel like it'll be kind of nice to sort of take it in small little glimmers and bits and pieces. So ideally, you know, I feel like I'm going to take a few months to dive through this. I don't want to inhale it, and I definitely don't think I'll be finishing this book by the end of the month. But I'm enjoying it, and I think that this is a book for me. I'm super thrilled to have my hands on as a journalism major because this is going to be huge for me in terms of conducting really meaningful interviews and asking interesting questions and getting to be the type of interviewer that I know I can be and want to be. And sort of having this book is like a model and a guide for asking interesting questions and getting to see examples of really interesting interviews is huge, and I'm thrilled to get to read this. And more updates will be coming on my thoughts and experiences reading this, and maybe there'll be specific interviews that I'll highlight that I think are really interesting. I haven't gotten to any yet in particular that I feel like are worth calling out, or moments where I'm like, oh my goodness. But I think it's definitely odd to see some of the wild and weird interview experiences that Neil Strauss has had. Like situations where you're like, whoa, like you would never expect these celebrities to do these really odd things. And now like we, the American public, are finding out about them, and it's odd. It feels like these are things that I should not know about. Let's get into talking about movies. I've watched a handful of movies so far this year. I've watched 7 movies, and I'm going to like quickly fly through them because a handful of them sort of I can all clump together. First movie that I watched in 2021 was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I gave this movie 2.5 stars. I don't get it. I know a little bit about Manson from watching Manson Lost Girls because one of my favorite actors is in that little Lifetime made-for-TV movie. I like the idea of Tarantino giving this story a different ending. I think that's ultimately what makes this movie appealing, but it's very Tarantino. But it's nowhere near as intense as Pulp Fiction is, but towards the end it's like very violent, and it's very much thrusted at you all at once. But there's long scenes of like westerns, and I don't understand why Brad Pitt won an Academy Award for this other than, you know, like it's certain people's time and there's certain, you know, sort of, I don't want to say, like it's not rigged, but you know, there's certain people where it's like, okay, well now it's finally their year to get it. Like it was Leonardo DiCaprio's year with The Revenant, and it's like, you know, but who are the people that are really deserving? It is, you know, it's all politics, and there's certain, you know, external factors that influence it. I'm glad I watched the movie. I definitely think as a whole it was an interesting story worth telling, but it's very Tarantino, and it's excruciatingly long at points. And if you're just like not in the mood for that type of movie, you got to be in the mood for that type of movie. You have to be really prepared to digest it and take it all in, and I definitely was not. I have an appreciation for Tarantino and his style. It's just, you know, some things are for you, some things are not. This was not really for me, but I appreciate it and I respect it. Now the next 4 movies I will just talk about all at once, and I watched the Ocean's 11 franchise. So I watched Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12, Ocean's 13, and then Ocean's 8. And these movies are really fun. I feel like they all follow a pattern of, here's Ocean, and he has a heist that he wants to pull off, and here's the team that he's going to gather. Let's introduce them like you do in the first film, or, you know, then in the sequels you don't have to introduce them, but we need to set up what the heist is, and there's this whole setup that's done and all these little different bits and pieces that need to take place, and then you get to the point where they pull off the heist, you think it goes awry, and then you find out, oh my gosh, actually, there was this thing that you didn't know about that happened. Let's explain that to you, and then they walk off and they're victorious. It's very much a certain format, and you stick to it every single time, but they're fun. It's a great ensemble cast, and I enjoyed watching all of these movies and had fun with them. There's lots of fun banter and one-liners, and you got a great ensemble of people. Don Cheadle has the same birthday as me. I was thrilled to see him in this movie. Love Don Cheadle. It's a good group. It's fun. fun. It's fun. And Ocean's 8, a lot of people hated on Ocean's 8, which I don't understand because I thought it was so good and I had so fun with it, and it was so nice to see ladies at the helm being badass. Particularly liked Rihanna's character. Also a big fan of Cate Blanchett, just having like the total punk lesbian vibe. I was here for it. And getting to see some cameo and appearances from some of the characters from the original trilogy was fun. It was a good time. I don't think these movies are like the defining excellence of cinema, but they're fun. Who doesn't love like a good heist movie? Yeah, it's great. So the next film that I watched, I feel like is super underrated right now and everybody should be watching it, and it's Death to 2020. So this was made by the same people who made Black Mirror, and it is a British mockumentary, and the cast is amazing. Lisa Kudrow is in it, Hugh Grant is in it, Samuel L. Jackson, Leslie Jones, Joe Keery, Kumail Nanjiani. You got like a great group of people that are in this documentary, and it's essentially these people all play different characters and they're having this commentary on the year, and it's a satire, but it's also very brutally honest, and it's just hilarious. I was seeing a lot of memes as Lisa Kudrow because her character plays a conservative White House correspondent, and the particular like section of this movie that I was seeing was her saying conservative voices are being silenced over and over and over again. The joke is like, you have plenty of platforms to speak. Your voice is not actually being silenced, although you think that it is. That was really relevant in terms of some of the things that were going on in our country at the beginning of the year with members of the GOP, their Twitter accounts being suspended after the insurrection at the Capitol. I was like, what is this from? And I finally found out it's from this documentary, and it's so funny and not enough people are talking about it. I thought it was great. I would love for them to keep doing this, especially if we continue to have a wild year like we did in 2020. I would love to see more things like this that are just sort of a satirical take on the year, because I think nobody wanted anything to do with 2020. Like, we were all over this year and done with it. Last thing we wanted was to hear jokes about 2020. Like, we don't want pandemic love stories. We don't want like any sort of movie or franchise set in 2020 and having it be this whole like, oh my god, look at the, like, none of that. But this, I think, is the one thing that sort of made commentary on this year worth watching, and something that I was like, I can watch this because it's brilliant, and it does a great job of sort of recapping the entire year, but also giving you legitimate commentary and sort of making you like look at this year from a little bit of a different perspective, and it was a lot of fun, so I definitely recommend watching. And lastly, a film that I just watched is The Birdcage. I watched this film for a particular reason. I'm not gonna say because I'm not able to divulge, but you'll probably find out by this summer. A friend recommended it to me and I had a lot of fun watching this. It was Nathan Lane, Robin Williams, and Hank Azaria, Gene Hackman, Callista Flockhart, Christine Baranski. Such a good cast of people. And this movie came out in 1996. Robin Williams, Nathan Lane, and Hank Azaria are essentially a gay trifecta. It's so fun. I feel like you should just go into this movie and just kind of let it unfold before you. That's what I did. I really didn't know much about the plot other than what my friend had told me, and then actually sitting down and watching it and letting the whole thing unfold, it was hysterical. I will say there are definitely some aspects of this movie that are problematic, but in terms of like 1996, this film was way ahead of its time and made some really brilliant and interesting commentary. I really, really love this film, and I'm so glad I watched it because I would have never known it existed. It would have never been in my radar unless a friend had told me, and I'm glad I took her advice and decided to sit down and watch it because I very thoroughly enjoyed myself, and it was definitely a solid movie to watch, a solid LGBTQ movie to watch, and from the 90s nonetheless. So fun, and just Robin Williams and Nathan Lane, Hank Azaria. I mean, like, those are people who are just icons. Watching them, you know, kill it in this movie was great. Again, need more queer movies with queer actors, but for the 90s, I feel like this movie was huge and cannot be underestimated what this film did in its time. I had fun watching it. I enjoyed it. I'm glad that I watched it, and I'm very thankful to the friend who recommended it for me. And lastly, for TV shows, I only have two that I'm going to be discussing. The first is SNL. So I mentioned this in my Q&A video. I've been watching lots of SNL recently, going back and watching reruns, and I love SNL so much. I think going back and watching SNL after the past past 4 years of the Trump administration and really seeing how that commentary has either aged terribly or has been really right on the money and kind of scarily accurate at predicting some of the ways and things that we were going to end up like is so interesting. The cast is phenomenal and they write such fun sketches. There's some sketches that I watched where I was like, I can't believe that they got away with this, but they did because it's so funny and brilliant, and I love this show. I need more new episodes of SNL. Like, I'm so excited to have episodes in 2021 because I'm already thinking that for the first episode of the new year, they're going to have to cover a insurrection at the Capitol, a second impeachment for the president, and the inauguration of Joe Biden, and who knows whatever else will happen in the rest of this upcoming week and the rest of next week, and whenever they have a new episode, because I don't think there's going to be one on Saturday. But they have so much to cover in the month since they've been off the air, and I'm really, really thrilled to see what they do and who they get to host, and to just get to continue watching this wonderful show and having fun with it. They have had so much great material laid at their feet, and the things that they've done with it have been so fun and brilliant and inventive, and it's just been the best thing to watch, to feel something towards the end of 2020 and the beginning of this year where there wasn't a lot of hope. There was hope, but it was all over the place. You had it and you lost it, and you were just really feeling unsure, and having a show like that's just super fun and just makes you laugh and makes you just feel all sorts of fuzzy feelings is great. It's, again, such a phenomenal cast, and the scripts are fantastic, and I love the show so much. And lastly, the show that I'm going to be discussing is currently airing right now, and that is WandaVision. So a lot of people have been complaining about this show. There's people that love it, people that hate it, people that are on the fence about it, and I am just giving this show time to watch it unfold because I feel like it is going to be a slow build. By the time we get to episode 6, episode 7, it is going to be a total clusterfuck, and it's going to be so surprising, and we're going to be on the edge of our seat, and it's going to be like, oh my god. And so I'm just waiting until we get to that point. But I think this show is doing a really good job of playing with 50s sitcom Dick Van Dyke Show vibes, and also sort of setting up this feeling of unease and there's something going on, and sort of introducing you to Sword, and doing a good job at foreshadowing some things where if you've read the comics, you can probably get an idea of what you think may be happening. I think this show, getting to have the week-to-week aspect and getting to have the discussion element, the what do you think is going to happen, is just what is going to make this show so successful. And really, I think what this show opens up is a conversation about streaming and how platforms like Netflix have completely changed the way we watch shows, because we now live in this binge culture where we expect everything all at once, and we don't get to enjoy that conversation that builds up, whereas Disney Plus has decided to turn against that and make you watch their shows week to week and build up. And I also think that's brilliant for marketing because you have a lot more time in which audiences are talking about your show. It's not like it drops all at once and you have people talk about it for a few days and then you have to wait until the next season. So I think Disney Plus is doing a brilliant job with rolling out these shows. Marvel also knows what they're doing, and they're being new and inventive and absolutely changing the game in terms of things that they've done before, and I'm thrilled to be watching new Marvel shows, and I'm hopeful that we get some Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. representation in this new phase of Marvel, because I love Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It is MCU content that came out in 2020, by the way. It deserves our acknowledgement and our respect, and I would like to see those characters show up in the MCU, but who knows? I also feel like Jen and Mo did a wonderful job with them, and I don't know if I want them in the MCU, I don't know if I want anybody else touching them besides Jen and Mo. But we'll see. I would not complain if we got more content. But I want to make sure that it's in the right hands. Okay, so that's it for content-wise, because we're starting to run a little bit long with this video. The last thing that I'm going to announce is that I have officially signed on to be a Amazon Prime student canvas manager. So that essentially means that I'm going to be working with a company that works with Amazon, and I'm going to be getting to do a whole bunch of giveaways and promotions and things on my social media account. I'm going to be using my personal social media account for that, but it is currently public for all of you to be able to go and see, so I will leave the link down below to that Instagram, and I'll be doing a whole bunch of giveaways there and social media posts and things, so if you want to check that out, more to come. But I'm really, really excited about this new opportunity to get to partner with Amazon Prime student and to be able to talk about all of the great deals that that service offers, because as a college student, Amazon Prime is great. I'm also still all about supporting independent businesses. I'm a big advocate of that. especially when it comes to supporting independent bookstores. But I think that in particular, Amazon and Amazon Prime Student has certain things for students and certain resources and benefits that you just cannot get anywhere else, and it's useful to have a tool like that. So I'm excited to get to embark down that path and to sort of get to go down that journey, and more will be to come on that. But on that note, I think that's it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time in a new one. I'm sending you my love.